Good evening and welcome to the Westford School Committee meeting for November 23rd, 2020. And on the agenda, there's various options for viewing, and there's also the link to Airtable where you can post a comment or question or request to speak live. And with those preliminaries, Bill, the floor is yours.
You're on mute, Bill.
Mute.
You know, I think I'm going to need a tutorial on how to unmute myself here. I'm sorry. We have two writers for the Ghostwriter who have been nationally recognized. They attended virtually the National High School Journalism Conference recently. Srinithi Raj won the first place award for news writing, and only 3 students were given this award this year. And Kristen Sue won first place award for review writing, and Kristen was the only student to achieve this top honor in her category this year. So congratulations to Srinithi and Kristen. Congratulations also to the advisors, Janet DeFondant and Jack Holbrook. They have done an outstanding job, and as you may recall, almost every year the Ghostwriter wins. Students participating in the Ghostwriter certainly win some degree of awards, either locally, regionally, or nationally, and they have done just an outstanding job. From the Blanchard School, Tim Hislop has informed me that Taylor Goodman-Leong is conducting once again a toy drive. They are accepting donations because it's going to be a little bit different this year. There's a GoFundMe page and a Facebook page for the love of Erica, excuse me. So that is what you would look up on GoFundMe page or Facebook. They have donated in the past over 20,000 presents to needy children. So we congratulate Taylor. She has done this for a number of years. Talk about an outstanding civic-minded young lady. Taylor is that person. Andrea Mahir has informed us that there are 27 students from Westford Academy, the music department, who have been accepted to the Massachusetts Music Educators Association Easton District Senior Festival. And in particular, that we had 13 students receive all state recommendations, and these students are Davina Finney for choir, Alexander Franken for choir, Alice Gao for orchestra, Mia Koo for orchestra, Amelia Margetts for orchestra, Alejandro Mahia for choir, Adasha Ramesh for choir, Cordelia Redmond for choir. Just a couple more. Thomas Sanders for choir, Jillian St. George, excuse me, choir, and Marvel Zhang for choir. Congratulate them all for their outstanding performance. Once again, between the Ghostwriter and our music department, students always make us proud. I do want to mention that we have hired a new HR coordinator. We have hired Trudy Isagohi Edwards. Trudy will be starting with us December 14th. She has an HR background and will be giving her employer 2 to 3 weeks notice before she is able to begin with us. So we have forwarded a contract to her late last week. We are just waiting for it to be returned, but I have a verbal approval from her after she reviewed the contract. So we're very excited about that. Kerry and I had a final interview with Trudy last week. We're very impressed. She's extraordinarily personable, understands the personnel and the human resource function, wants to connect as much as possible with people and actually get out into the buildings and meet our staff, which is highly unusual for an HR person, but essential for making those connections that bring about such a strong, trusting, respectful culture. We had a superintendent's forum last week that was well attended. I'm liking the remote meetings because we are getting a higher level of attendance and participation. And as in the past, when we used to have 5, 6, 7 parents, I believe we had in the low 20s last week, and that was very encouraging. I have another listening session for budget and priorities, educational priorities, coming up on December 1st. Going to send out some information to parents prior to that, see if we can stimulate some conversation that will benefit us in terms of shaping our budget. This is a time of year historically where people are thankful, which we should be every day of the year. But the reason I bring that up is today I sent to you my official letter of retirement from our school system effective June 30th of 2021. I will be completing my 35th year in Westford, my 50th overall. And, when I've gone to meetings across the state, and Kerry would certainly verify this, she and I have often come back saying how lucky we are to be working in Westford. And for my years here, I started in 1986, I've always felt that it was a distinct privilege to work in such a wonderful town with such wonderful residents, outstanding staff members, great committees over the years. And we've all worked together to make terrific things happen for students. So I wanted to submit that to you to get something on the record. Just know how much this has been a part of my life and an important part of my life, and how much I love the town of Westford and I love the Westford Public Schools. And no day ever in the last 35 years has been a job. It's been a passion, and loved every minute of it. So with that, I will also wish everyone, our students, our staff, our families, a very happy Thanksgiving. It will be different this year, but you know what? It's still Thanksgiving. So, and that is it.
Thank you, Bill. Of course, we are thankful for your long service to our schools, our students, and the entire Westford community. And really more recently, I appreciate your leadership throughout this public health crisis. So I look forward to continuing to work together for the remainder of this uniquely unprecedented and challenging year.
It is. Thank you.
Real quick before we get to the next one.
Absolutely.
Bill, thank you, Laura. Yeah, Bill, I mean, we all knew that letter was coming, obviously, and it didn't make it any less sad, right? And thank you for your time and your service to the community. It's greatly appreciated. And we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. And it's unheard of to have someone who spent that long of a tenure with one district, particularly a town that you don't even live in. So it's impressive.
Thank you.
Tough act to follow with that announcement, but we'll continue with the meeting, and I'm sure there will be many opportunities, I hope, knock on wood, maybe in person, to continue to celebrate this final year as we go forward. But we will go on with the business of the night, and Carrie, I think you're up for Assistant Superintendent update.
Took the words out of my mouth in terms of a tough act to follow. So I just would like to share, 'tis the season, and not the season you may be thinking of. It's the season of surveys. We have a couple of surveys that are out there right now. First, at our last school committee meeting, we had the family survey that we went over and took a look at. And then shortly after that meeting, we developed a survey for staff members. And right now, that is currently still open. We do monitor as additional feedback comes in, but it closes on Wednesday afternoon. So we very much look forward to taking a look at what staff have to share and say about our current hybrid model and any suggestions that they have that could help improve that and what they would like to see moving forward. One of the questions that we asked that I'm finding most helpful and insightful was something that we actually did with students at several of the levels in our challenge success process. And the prompt in the survey was, I wish my administrators knew. And then they had to fill in the blank in the rest of the sentence. And reading through those, there's certainly a mix of emotions, and people come at that question or that prompt with different perspectives. But I'm thrilled that we added that part in there, because I do think it was something that was a little bit more open-ended and even got a little bit personal. So I do look forward to reviewing that with Bill and his team, and then we'll certainly compile the information and share it with you, along with kind of some of the trends that are similarities and differences with the family survey as well. In addition, we have the panorama survey, and Bill has placed a particular emphasis on the social emotional learning of students as well as staff members for this year, given these circumstances. And of course, as you all know, we've been focusing heavily on that over the past many years, but this is a different type of year. And even in some cases where students may not normally present struggles under these conditions, we're seeing more of that with both students and staff. So Bill and Brian Rourke and Wendy Pikacek and I participated in a preview of the training that will take place for the full leadership team on December 4th. And we're very excited to be able to dive in with the full team to look at the results. The results are in, and we've been able to give an initial look at them, but we do look forward to having one of the experts from Panorama guide us through those. And then from that point, there's a template in place to carry the information forward and come up with action items to address what we're seeing. And then lastly, we've got a 12-person committee going to review new student information systems. You'll see that in the capital presentation, so I won't dive too deeply into it, but we do have a wonderful cross-section of individuals who are representing on that committee. And this is something that has been a long time coming, because IPASS is very difficult and not so intuitive. And Ingrid and Bill had kind of put their brains together and thought that this might be the year to bring it forward as a capital item. So we do have, excuse me, we do have this committee who will be looking at demos, and we've reached out to other districts to see what they're using. And we look forward to, over the next few months, going through a thorough process to end up making a recommendation if this were to get approved as a capital item. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Carrie. Ingrid, finance update?
Just real quick, we met with the town officials and to discuss the budget timeline last week. Annual town meeting will be June 12th. So it's significantly later than we're used to, but that buys us the time that I think we all agreed we need this year to put together hopefully the most reasonable FY22 budget that we can, based on where we are next June. Working back, everything for budget works backwards off that town meeting date. So right now, Jody Ross, our town manager, is slated to do her budget presentation on February 9th. Bill is slated mid-January to present his budget to you. And then we'll flow into the spring with the meetings that and hearings that you will find necessary in order to make the budget your own. And I think that's it. We'll go into capital later on this meeting.
Great, thank you, Ingrid. So grateful to have that extra time during this very unique and challenging year, as we all keep saying. Other updates from school committee? Alicia?
So I just wanted to give a search update. As we all know, as Bill said, we will be looking for our next superintendent, and we are about to begin the public input part of the process. There are initially 3 ways the public will be asked to give us input. There will be a survey, there will be focus groups, and then there will be what's called the preliminary selection committee. The preliminary screening committee. So what the preliminary screening committee does is it takes the wide pool of applicants and narrows it down to the finalists that would then be presented to the school committee. And I know that Nina and Chris have been working all day to get the links ready. They've been working with the MASC. We hope to have the email go out to you all tomorrow. It will explain what each of those opportunities are and how you can participate. And then even after that, I want to remind the public that once finalists are chosen, there will be a round of public meetings where the public can meet the finalists as well. So there's lots of steps along the way. It is vital that we get as much stakeholder input from across the spectrum as we possibly can. So be on the lookout for that email, and there will be reminders coming. And I thank you ahead of time for all of your participation. And I especially thank Chris and Nina for working so hard on getting all those links and emails together in the last couple of days.
Any questions from the committee before we do more updates? Any questions on search? Okay, well, I'll keep our eyes peeled for that information. Avery?
I just wanted to note, I know we're going to talk about COVID next, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, but I do want to reiterate that the superintendent has a COVID advisory committee that I am the representative from school committee on. And I don't know if the public realizes that there's such a committee. It is an outstanding committee that superintendent has put together with multiple physicians, nurses, school administrators, guidance counselors, parents, CPAC representative, as well as myself. And this group is taking really thoughtful, logical conversations about the COVID crisis and where the schools are and what direction we need to move, whether it's fully remote, more in person. We're looking at all movement in both directions, not just to shut things down. And I just wanted to commend superintendent on putting a committee together. It really an outstanding group right now. So we'll hear more, but I just decision.
Thanks, Avery. I think your video is breaking up a bit, but we got the important part of the message. I've been able to sit in on a couple of those advisory committee meetings as well, and it really is a great group that's having very thoughtful discussions. I'm glad that we have that expertise and at our disposal as we're dealing with this ever-changing situation. Avery, did we also want to talk about finance, or I guess a lot of that updates kind of rolled into capital, right?
Yeah, this week we did meet, and it was to review the capital that was then presented to capital on Friday. And I think we're going to be covering that in as a separate line item. So I am the representative to the town's capital planning committee. And so, but I think Paul and Ingrid and Bill are going to present a little bit later.
Okay, great.
We have a very healthy capital budget.
Anything else from the committee? Valerie?
I just wanted to echo what Bill said about accessibility for the virtual forums. I made a point to attend the morning open house last Friday and the budget listening. I know a lot of us were at the budget listening forum the week before, and you know, with little ones at home, especially, and the unpredictability of schedules and everything this year, I think it's really great to just be able to log in from home or an office and join in on those conversations and from my perspective, to really listen to what parents are saying directly. So I hope to see, it's just a plea to encourage more to attend. I think you said the next budget one is next Thursday on the 3rd. And, there's no rule like school to, have your camera on or anything. So feel free to be doing the dishes or something and listening in. So thanks.
Yep, thank you. It was a good meeting and a good discussion, and it is interesting how in this, different environment, I think some people who might not have been able to attend in-person meetings before are now able to join us. So if there's a silver lining, I guess that might
That's
be
right.
one. And updates from our student representatives.
No updates relatively. Everything's probably just about the same. The past 2 weeks we've had Spirit Week for the students to participate in, where the kind of like it was a lot of people were saying it felt like normal, so that was a good thing for I think just all across the board overall for the school.
Felt like normal is something we like to hear. I definitely saw some of the pictures online from Spirit Week. I'm glad people were getting into it as always and having a good time and showing some spirit, even if it was A spirit and B spirit. I thought it was great to see the photos. Anything to add, Hannah?
I would agree with Brian. I think people are kind of starting to find a pattern and get back to their normal life-ish and being more involved with clubs now. So I think things are going well.
Are things going well with clubs? I know a lot of the clubs are operating online. Is that working so far?
So yeah, well, for me, I do DECA and Spanish Club and then like Model UN. So all of my clubs are online, but we have meetings pretty regularly and they seem to be working well over Zoom. Obviously, it would be more fun if we could be in person, but I think for now it's just good that we can all like be together and kind of interact. So I think it's good.
Great, good to hear. Thanks for sharing. I guess now we'll move on to the official agenda item for COVID update, although it seems like sometimes our entire meetings feel like COVID updates.
It does seem like that. And Avery, thank you for mentioning the COVID Advisory Committee. Tomorrow, I will be posting the names and the job titles on our dashboard of all the COVID Advisory Committee members, along with the matrix that I will be sending you in the morning. I've just done a couple of final touch-ups to the decision-making matrix. I'll send that out to you first, and then I will post that on the website also. The numbers are up a little bit, updated them again this morning. We have at the present time 8 positive cases in our school system, keeping in mind that the transmission is generally not in the school system, it is outside of the school system. We have of the 8 positive cases, 6 students and 2 staff members. We have a total of 26 individuals who were considered and have been considered close contacts, 22 students and 4 staff members. The rise in the numbers is consistent with what's happening throughout the state and throughout the nation right now. There's been a rapid rise in numbers of cases in the birth to 30-year-old segments of the population. That has seen a dramatic increase. What's happened in terms of the number of daily cases is almost, you will see if you check the DPH data and the dashboard data in their weekly update, almost a bimodal distribution. There was a strong surge of cases in the April and May period, followed by a downturn, a rather significant downturn through June and July, part of August, and now a rapid increase in the number of cases that in some at some points does exceed what took place in April and May. I do want people to know that I do check the numbers every single day on the dashboard from the DPH. I check in with Jeff Stevens. Jeff has sent me some information also today in terms of the distribution. There are 341, there have been 341 total cases in Westford, 43 active, and quite a large number, about 50 of those are between the birth and newborn and age 30 age range. And so that seems to be an area of growing incidence of transmission. As I said, we did update the dashboard information, the graphs today also. And I have on me at any one time during each day about 10 to 12 pages of information, whether it's from our local health department, our school nurses, or from the DPH, or from the CDC for that fact. And so, I do want parents to know we are on top of the situation. I think we have done as much as any school system in the entire state to try and keep our staff and our students safe. The staff has expressed appreciation about that. We had a health and safety committee meeting with the Union Health and Safety Committee last week, and they were very much appreciative of all the efforts that everyone has devoted to keeping people as safe as possible. I do want to remind people to be very careful in Thanksgiving celebration. No, I'm not here to say don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but please be careful, be cognizant of what it takes to transmit the virus. If you're traveling out of state, remember the state's requirements in terms of filling out a form, having a test within 72 hours of your return, quarantining until you get the test results. So please, that data is on our website also for you to review. We do have some questions, once again, that do come up periodically saying, why does someone who has the virus required to be out for 10 days, but someone who's a close contact is required to be out 14 days? Now that has changed recently, but it's basically been 14 days. The reason for it is the incubation period, that it will sometimes take up to 5 to 8 days for the virus to express itself and symptoms to be expressed in an individual after close contact. Now, not everyone becomes a positive case as a result of being a close contact, but that's why the quarantine period is a little bit longer than the actual isolation period for a person who actually has the virus, who tests positive. So at any point in time, if any of you in the public have any questions about COVID, about what we're doing, about the notifications, about quarantine, isolation, etc., please just feel free to give me a call or send me an email or give me I'll be glad to speak with you on the phone directly so that we can communicate effectively and you can feel comfortable with the information that I provide you. So that is it. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions tonight.
Avery.
Bill, I also wanted to add on and hopefully comment on the dashboard that you're using and why it may not match up. We had talked about that briefly, and did you want to make a comment on, don't worry about the numbers?
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that, Avery, because I did, after the COVID advisory committee last week, the following day or two, I did put a notice on the dashboard that sometimes you will notice a difference between our numbers in terms of positive cases and close contacts, a difference with our local Westford Board of Health or Health Department, and certainly a difference with the state numbers. It all has to do with different timeframes of reporting. Please keep in mind that some of the DPH data is not entirely accurate until about 5 to 7 days after the actual date that something is originally reported. In other words, for today, November 23rd, the state could report 1,700 new COVID cases. About 5 days from now, for November 23rd, that number could be 2,600. And it's because labs report on a different time frame. And so it's difficult to cross-reference all the data. The numbers will not necessarily be the same. Just know that the numbers on our dashboard are real-time numbers from the Westford Public Schools. Okay, so and thank you for reminding me of that, Avery, because we do get some questions in terms of, well, your numbers, either somebody's numbers are not accurate. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It's just the different reporting periods.
I had a question about the dashboard numbers, Bill. This was a question I got from a resident. I wanted to make sure I was answering it properly, so I figured I should check with the source. When you list close contacts in our school community, are those students and staff who have had a close contact within our school system, or people who have had a close contact anywhere in their life? So it might have been a close contact exposure at home or in a dance class, or it's elsewhere in their life.
That's an excellent question. It involves anyone, anywhere who is considered to have been a close contact with someone who has tested positive. Most of the close contacts that have been reported to us are a result of people being outside of the school system and being in the presence of someone who has the virus.
Okay. So there are people who are part of our school community and are quarantining, but they may not necessarily have had that close contact exposure as part of Westford Public Schools.
That's correct. In fact, the number of cases of close contacts have actually been minimal within our school system because of the low incidence of transmission.
And I would think also because of the 6 feet distance that we maintained.
That's correct. That's been vital.
Sean.
Bill, on a related subject with close contacts, can you talk about if a student does have a close contact within our district, what the school's reporting responsibilities are? Like, are they reaching out to the family directly, or is the Westford Public Health Department stepping in?
Well, a close contact will be determined by the health department. Now, they do utilize 2 or 3 of our nurses from time to time in terms of the contact tracing. So once a contact tracing is done, the parents of the child will be contacted and informed that their child has been considered to be a close contact of someone and that they will have to quarantine for 14 days. So that being considered a close contact happens after the contact tracing takes place, certainly within the school environment and both outside of the environment also. Now, when there is a positive case in school, a letter goes home to all parents, and that letter does state that unless you have been contacted by someone from the health department in Westford, your child is not considered to be a close contact, and with reasonable assurance of being safe. So I think we've got all of the reporting and the contact tracing covered. The nurses and the town staff have done an outstanding job. And so just, I'd like the parents to know that we are doing everything possible to keep students and the staff safe. And I honestly think we've done a lot more than many other school systems have done, and I think it's paying dividends in our town.
So, Bill, with the contact tracing though, so generally, again, if my student has a close contact in school, I'll hear from the Westford Department of Health, right? But
That's correct.
There's a chance I may hear from a school nurse prior to that, you're saying?
Well, the contact tracing, you won't hear anything until the contact tracing is done, because that is a definitive process to determine whether or not the child is considered a close contact. So communication will be after that.
Okay. And the contact tracing is solely being done by the Department of Public Health, has nothing to do with what we're doing within the schools, correct?
It's the Westford Health Department, but they also from time to time utilize some of our nurses, Sue Hanley, Kathy Bedot, to assist them if they're quite honestly quite busy with contact tracing throughout the town.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Valerie?
Can we try adding the total counts as well to the dashboard updates? I know that's like a snapshot in time of, when that PDF gets uploaded, but it would be really helpful, unless there's a reason not to just have kind of a rolling cumulative total.
Valerie, I assume you're referring to a rolling cumulative total within the school system?
Right.
Yes, certainly. We will do that. In fact, I did that, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I
Yeah.
must apologize. I haven't updated that, but I'll update that this week.
Thanks.
Any other questions from committee members or Carrie or Ingrid? Any COVID-related updates from you? Okay, then next up would be our winter sports update from Athletic Director Jeff Bunyan. I think Chris is getting him on the line. We're looking forward to an update on how fall sports went and also what the MIAA and DCL has decided for winter sports. Thanks for your patience, everyone, while we're trying to get Jeff on the line with us. I see a square for you, Jeff, but I don't see video or audio yet. Ah, now you're appearing. Hooray.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having me tonight. And I do want to start by saying, Bill, Carrie, Ingrid, the entire school committee, thank you guys for your leadership, throughout this time. There's a lot being thrown your way, and it really is truly appreciated. And so I would like to start by saying, I'm very, very excited that we were able to have a fall 2020 season. So I would like to give you a quick snapshot of the fall season and kind of an overview as to how that went before I get into the winter forecast. Interscholastic athletics played a vital role in re-engaging our students back as we got back to school. The MIA recommended, and with the support of this committee, we were able to participate in girls soccer, boys soccer, field hockey, girls and boys cross country, and golf. And the primary objective was to create a sustainable athletic model for school-sponsored athletics. And I'm very proud of all the coaches and the student athletes for their commitment to help us achieve our primary goal. We had nearly 300 students participate in athletics at the academy, as well throughout 13 teams. And I was reminded again last week when I presented during school council. We had one of our crew members that we did run a crew program in conjunction with WCR this fall. And one of our crew members, Meghna Kumar, was on the call, and she stopped me and thanked me again for how much she looked forward to going to those, to her practices for crew. And it was just nice to hear that. Also, last week, we hosted a ceremony for 2 students that signed national letters of intent. And during this tough time, when it's tough for college coaches to get out there and recruit, to see that we had a swimmer going to Providence, Michaela Martin, and Dominique Paglia going to Brandeis for soccer. It was just very exciting time. We actually hosted that for the first time outside, and we did it inside, but in our courtyard. So open air. It was a really nice setting. It was quite cold, but we got through it, and it was an exciting time. And what's interesting to note about that event was typically, there'll be family, mom and dad, some close family members, maybe 1 or 2 classmates or our teammates may attend. We had virtually the entire girls soccer team there, several boys soccer players, as well as many swimmers were there. It was very well attended. I'm glad that we had all of we were ready for that, which we had additional masks ready and hand sanitizers ready. So we were able to spread everyone out and be safe. But it was just very gratifying to see that take place. And it was gratifying every day. I attended, I think, almost every single practice or event we had here at the school. I wanted to make sure I was getting out there, making sure that our student athletes were doing the right thing. And just to see the smiles on their faces and to see them the next day in the hall thanking me and Thank you, Billy Bombassi, our trainer, thanking Mr. Antonelli, anyone that they could, just so appreciative of what we were able to do this fall. And another positive thing that came out of this fall was our relationship with the WestfordCAT. Through Sean Kelly, who's one of your school committee members, is on the board of directors within the WestfordCAT, the WestfordCAT. He helped put together a program, and some students got on board, and so we were able to televise several events, and that worked out really, really well. So they were seen live streamed on the YouTube channel on WestfordCAT, as well as live on the cable channels, whether you had Verizon or Comcast. We also streamed quite a few events on our Instagram page for people to view. So what came out of that was something very positive, and we're definitely going to expand that and build on that for the winter season. And one of our students, a sophomore, Austin DeSisto, he really, really stepped up with the entire WestfordCAT in the filming of these events. He actually was offered an internship from the WestfordCAT. He took ownership of it. He picked up the cameras, and he was just terrific as far as what can I do to help promote, had an interest in it, and really, really did a great job. We also, we spoke about the ghostwriters and their awards earlier. We were able to provide them media lanyards. So we had quite a bit of coverage through the ghostwriter. They came, and that worked out very, very well as well. So I do want to, before I go on, I do want to make sure that I give a huge shout out to all the parents of all of our student athletes. This season definitely looked different, and their flexibility, their support, their willingness to follow the protocols was really, really invaluable for the success of the fall season. So I do want to thank you guys again for all your support, and also wanted to thank the Westford Health Department and Jeff Stevens. Jeff and I met frequently to go over the plan, what was working well, maybe what we could do to tweak the plan a little bit. And we worked very, very well together throughout the entire fall, and that will continue. So on to the winter forecast, or I should stop. Any questions? Any questions on the fall?
John.
Yeah, Jeff, first of all, thanks for everything that you've been doing. I know you're one of the hardest working guys in Westford.
No harder than anyone else. We're all working together.
The lanyards with parents, how's that working? Have you had any issues with like parents policing themselves or what?
No, we actually, it worked out remarkably well. Not only did we have rosters that were provided from our own home team and rosters that were provided from our visiting team, anyone that was supposed to be at the event had a lanyard. We checked everyone in with the lanyard. We took down their name. We did take the extra step. We took down everyone's cell contact number at every single event we had, whether it was an inter squad scrimmage where it was just Westford folks or visiting teams. No one had any issues with it at all. It really, really worked out well. I'm very, very happy that as a DCL, we decided to do that. And we'll continue that with whatever season we have where we do allow spectators into it. And I'll get into that later on. But the lanyards worked, that system, Sean, worked out really well.
Great.
Anything else, Gloria? Or
any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hand waves, so I will just add thank you. I know you already issued a lot of thank yous, Jeff, which is fantastic. Thank you to you for everything you've done to help keep our athletes and our coaching staff safe during the fall.
Yeah, I always say to Jim, I love my job. There was a lot going on this fall, but really, I'm very, very appreciative of all the support around me. It's easy to do a good job when you have good support. So I appreciate that. So if there's no other questions on the fall, we can move on to the winter, which exciting time. I mean, there's again, a lot of questions that are out there again, as we had back in September when we met. And, there's no playbook for this. So we're updating that playbook all the time. The MIA met last Friday. So this is a timely time for me to be addressing the committee. They announced, they made several announcements with regard to winter sports. The announcements included the actual start date of winter sports, Traditionally, it's the Monday after Thanksgiving, which would have been November 30th. However, we as a DCL board, we met prior to that 2 weeks ago. Maybe some of you saw the announcement. We had already made the decision that we were going to delay our DCL start date to December 14th. We felt very strongly that, you know, we hope people are following the rules and the plan as far as Thanksgiving, but we wanted to make absolutely certain that we waited out 2 weeks after Thanksgiving just to eliminate any issues with any potential contact spreading of the virus, for that to all flush through before we started our winter sports. And ironically, on Friday, the MIA did announce that they were going to delay the start of the season till December 14th. So we are very happy that we were ahead of that curve. But again, everyone's kind of thinking the same thing. How do we keep athletes safe? So with regard to which sports, that's been a big question on everyone's minds. Which sports were we going to be, was the MIA going to approve for safe competition? This went on for a while as far as how they got to that point. Just a quick note, every sport has a subcommittee that's an individual committee where they meet as a board and they try to come up with rules and modifications as to what they can do so their sport can be performed safely. Those committees met with the sports medicine committee earlier last week. They went through all their protocols and what they felt they needed to do to be safe. The sports committee made further recommendations on what they were proposing. And then once that information was settled, all that information was delivered from the COVID task force to the MIA board of directors, who ultimately made this announcement on Friday. And on Friday, they announced that they would approve swim and dive, basketball, gymnastics, ice hockey, alpine skiing, and Nordic skiing. Those were the sports that were approved for safe competition. The one sport that was also approved but is being delayed is indoor track and field. The reason for that is, quite honestly, the facilities needed to perform that event or that activity. We don't have the Reggie Lewis Center or Boston University where we host all of our meets, and that's across the entire MIAA. That's just not the DCL. So that was agreed to move to the floating season, the fall 2 season, and we're hoping by mid-February that some of those facilities will be opened up and we will be able to perform our sport in that fall 2 season, which begins on February 2nd. Wrestling was also officially moved to the spring season. That was a big discussion about that, and that was what was decided with regard to wrestling, as well as cheerleading, with the maneuvers and the mounting that needs to take place with the moves. They said that they wanted to move that to the spring season. So as I stated, the MIA, in conjunction with the Sports Medicine Committee, kind of came up with these all these individual sport modifications, and there's quite a few for each sport. Every sport has their own modification, and from reviewing them, I think that they did a really good job. I think they nailed it as far as what they need to do to keep the athletes safe. I thought they did a terrific job in the fall season with some of those events as far as modifications they needed. I think a lot of the decisions comes down to the stationary time during the event while play is going on. How long are the athletes stationary? So for instance, with basketball, there's only so many people that are allowed underneath the hoop during free throws, where they'd be kind of lining up along the key. Similar to soccer, where they didn't allow corner kicks because the athletes form in front of the goal crease waiting for the ball to enter the field. It looks like they were very cognizant about that, and the bench spacing, where we need to have our athletes, when they're on the benches, to be 6 feet apart. And obviously, without being said, masks on the whole time, hand sanitizer before you enter the game, as you enter the game, That's continuously being done as well. And before I go on, it really is important to note that the DESE requires the MIAA to follow all the EEA guidelines that are set up through the state during this pandemic. So everything the MIAA does is they're mandated to follow the EEA requirements, based on what DESE says. And the Dual County League, which I work very closely with my athletic directors, we work very closely together. We have meetings multi times every week. We're going to continue to enforce all of our safety, sanitizing protocols that we put in place to keep all of our, coaches and athletes safe. Sean asked the questions about how the lanyards went. At this time, we have not approved spectators for the winter season. However, we will be reviewing that and reevaluating that right up through the end of December. Because I didn't mention the first competition would not take place until that first week of January 4th. So I think it's the 6th is the first date of competition. So we're going to continue to reevaluate the whole spectator thing. We just want to make sure, once again, everything we do, we need to make sure that we can support our decision and go back to our overarching theme, which is how do we keep everyone safe? Students, student athletes, spectators, coaches, officials, everyone. And I'll continue to work with Jeff Stevens. I had a meeting with him on Friday, and Jeff and I are going to reevaluate all the procedures. We're going to do walkthroughs like we did in the fall. We're going to walk through the different venues to see, what's working out well and what should we do differently. One thing I should mention, even in the fall, there was no playbook for this. We realized that during the game itself, the games went great. What we were finding was before and afterwards, it was fine because the coach was making sure everyone had masks on. But during the competition itself, we were concerned that athletes were starting to group closer together. So what we decided to do while they were on the benches, even though there was a mandate that said they had to be 6 feet apart, we actually went and spray painted hash marks, 6 foot hash marks along the entire turf, right along the track. So that way their athletes could store their gym bag, their water, and that's where they would stand during the game. So they would know their actual spot to go, rather than just saying, hey, everyone, make sure you're 6 feet apart. We didn't want the coaches to have to police that or have to worry about that during a game. Rather, they could just turn around and say, hey, make sure everyone's on their hash mark. And there was enough room for 18 hash marks on either side for the players that weren't playing. And we plan on doing the same thing for that in basketball, ice hockey, wherever our athletes are playing when they're on the bench. We also added a public service announcement for any events that were on our turf, even though we had plenty of signage up that talked about, keeping social distancing, having your mask on, please use the hand sanitizer. Several times throughout the event, myself or one of my staff went over the loudspeaker, welcoming everyone to the event and reminding them of the safety protocols, and thanking them for following all the MIAA, DCL, and Westford Academy protocols. So that's an overview. Looking forward to having another 12 teams, probably maybe just about 300 student athletes again participating this winter. Anything we can do to keep our athletes safe, we are working really hard to make sure that happens. Avery, I heard you mention earlier about the COVID advisory committee. If that's something that I think I'd like to attend one of those, at least one, just to hear what's being said at that. I think that'd be a good idea to help me if anything pops up at that may help influence our athletic programs.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. I've seen a couple hands. I know I also had a couple questions. Jeff, I know that you mentioned that there was going to be a delay for indoor track and field because of facility availability.
Yep.
How are things looking for some of our other facility needs, especially for something unique like swim and dive? Like, how's that going?
Everything's great. we've secured facilities for everything. Yeah, very, very excited about that. I've met with all the facilities. I've visited them, and you know, I'm going to continue to do that to make sure that they're following up on our agreements, to make sure that they are following all the protocols that we are requiring. You know, I was going to say not only as the MIA, but as a school system, everything that I want to make sure everything's being done the way we need it to be done in order for this thing to go off smoothly. Very, very happy with what happened in the fall, but now we have the winter in front of us, and you know, we'll continue to move forward. But thank you for asking that, Gloria. Very excited that we were able to put that together.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a challenge. I know, you know, with the switch from fall to winter sports, you know, we're moving indoors. So I'm sure that this kind of goes without saying, because you sound confident in the you know, modifications and the facilities you have. But for parents who may be concerned about moving towards indoor sports, you know, how can we assure them that it's still safe to play inside?
Sure. Well, number one, we're going to make sure that every facility has our protocols, and I'm going to make sure that I visit them. I'm going to be there. I'm going to rotate a schedule, and I'm going to stop in, make sure they're doing everything they should be doing, and we'll provide them with the proper, like, cleaning materials. I have all my coaches, not only do they have their med kit, but they also have, we call it like a COVID kit, and it'll be a bag with hand sanitizer and extra face masks, anything needed for the student athlete.
Bunch of other hands. Valerie?
Does Hannah want to go first? I saw her hand up.
Oh, Mr. Hanahan. Hannah.
Sorry, I don't know if this question is too specific, but I do dive, and
Yeah.
I was like, we were told we could not practice at UMass Lowell anymore. Is there like a specific location that we're gonna be at this year?
Yeah, right now we UMass Lowell is not open at this time, and they might open later on in the winter. So we might be able to flip to that. But right now we'll be using the Lowell YMCA, which they house the Chelmsford swim team as well. But we'll be doing it later on, so it's after hours. It's an 8:30 slot, to be specific. So we'll have that pool all to ourselves, and I'm really excited about that. We'll also be using Atkinson over in Sudbury, which you're aware of. You've been there before. And I think we have 9 divers this year. So I'm excited that's gonna work out for us. And I've worked really hard. I'll give a shout out to Caitlin, Click McHugh, and Harriet have done a great job working with me to try to secure facilities. All my coaches, I mean, not just them, but I know some of the board members that I had talked to about a month or so ago when I was nervous about maybe not having the facility secured. Everyone's worked really hard to make that happen. So I'm very, very happy with that. So thanks, Hannah. So we're good to go. You're going to be hearing from Caitlin very soon on specifics. Yes.
Like to see that smile, Hannah. Valerie.
So as Gloria mentioned, you know, all the fall ones were outdoors, and most of these are indoors aside from skiing, although that would be interesting. So this just feels different to me. You know, I can appreciate how important it is. I loved hearing the stories about the appreciation and the gratitude from students and athletes. I know it's important for social, emotional, and mental health, but it just doesn't feel comfortable to me that we have all these guidelines, you know, to sit in desks spaced 6 feet apart. And now we're going to say that, you know, mixing pods and, you know, being all breathing heavy and getting closer to each other is, you know, is okay. So I'd really love to hear what the advisory committee would say about this. Like, I don't know how to kind of work their approach their opinion in on this. You know, we do have physicians and school nurses on there. That's not my credentials. So I'd really love to hear what they say before this would start. And I know that our vote a couple months ago was really that we were kind of green lighting to follow the MIAA recommendations, I think was the wording of the motion. But I mean, as it stands right now, even masked and with the sanitization, and I'm not, and like the facility protocols that you're talking about, it's more about the contact and how close we're getting, right? So even if no one's kind of hovering under the net and all those kind of adjustments, it still feels too close and indoors for me.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate that. And again, I don't want to repeat myself, but there is no playbook for it. We're looking at this and we're seeing what we can do. I know one thing that the sports medicine committee was very aware of was the fact that during competition, they didn't have any issues, and they really were not worrying, but what they wanted to focus on was that time when the game wasn't going on. So to eliminate those close contacts. So whether it's soccer or basketball, there's still person-on-person coverage, but they minimize that. So loose balls are going to blow a whistle. So they're not going to allow like the diving on the floor, like they wouldn't allow certain moves, defensive moves in soccer. They're trying to eliminate that close contact during the sport, but very, very aware of the stationary times that they're stationary. And as far as indoors, when I confirm with our custodians, you know, we've got the MERV filters indoors with regard to just close contacts. They have to stay 6 feet away when the coach is talking to them, when they're being addressed, when they're in a group setting, just like outside. It was the same deal. They need to stay 6 feet away. They need to have their masks on. They will be provided times to take mask breaks, which when that happens, they'll go to their hash mark or their designated area, which is specifically set up so they are far away, so they won't be considered a close contact, which I think plays to the fall. There wasn't any issues inside the fence, as I say. Any of the positive tests that resulted in anyone else was outside the fence, at home or outside, not within the field of play. But I appreciate that, Valerie, and I have the same thoughts, which is why we're going to have to really ramp it up and make sure we're doing the right thing with that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that some of these things are probably happening at Millworks or, you know, other kind of regional places and Tingsboro Sports Center. And it just feels like at a school level, we have all these guidelines for the classrooms, right? And they're like sitting, you know, in the desks 6 feet apart, but we're not putting them 3 feet apart, right? So even I know, like, and I appreciate all that detail about the hash marks and everything. It just feels different to me. I do have just two specific logistic questions. And as a newbie, is it the same towns for winter sports?
Yeah, we're gonna follow the same common opponent structure that we did in the fall. That worked out really well. There was there was some discussion about it, but at the end of the day, we went back to what we said, hey, what worked out well? And that worked out really well. Something, Valerie, I did want to bring up, not to interrupt you. You had mentioned, you know, cohorts within the high school. We are switching classes all the time. We do have directionals in the hallways where we're traveling in the same direction, but we are mixing cohorts every day or in every class, as opposed to middle school. And I didn't bring this up, and I need to. In talking with the middle school principals, we are going to continue to keep a pause on middle school sports for the winter. You know, one of the main reasons, Valerie, you just brought it up, they have a cohort model where they stay with the same kids all day. And athletics is an extension of the school day. And the principals just felt that to mix them up when keeping them together all day in the school was not the safest way to go about, not to mention the half days and getting them back on campus and the supervision that's required at the middle school level will be putting a lot on the coaches and their staff. So I did want to bring that up, and I apologize for not mentioning that earlier.
but it's the same league, right? The same list of towns as the fall?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yes.
And then I just had one question. I don't know if it's for you or for Ingrid, but in the fall, we decided to keep the activity fees the same as last year. I was just wondering how that worked out when we look at the fall season. Did we end up in the red or balance neutral out?
We were neutral, and we have, we did well with it. It was a good decision, and we're going to continue that in the winter for the whole school year, as I think we've got it approved for. But it made sense, and it worked out very, very well. So thank you for bringing that up.
Other questions from the committee? Avery?
Thank you, Jeff. I have not looked at sport-specific accommodations, like, I know in the fall, they had pages of each sport and what they were going to accommodate. My question is about hockey, not to pick on them, call them out, but the state did close down hockey for 2 weeks because there was a spread in those clubs and in those rec leagues. And how are we going to work with a rink and make sure that things are safe? And I think, as you said, when they're inside the fence, they are safe, but are we seeing other kind of gatherings that are a concern? But my first question was really about hockey and why the governor closed it down, and then we're feeling that it's okay to go ahead with.
Sure. And I'm glad you brought that up, because the issues from what I've seen and was told specifically with hockey is they were allowing locker rooms, and they were allowing, they were not, even though they had a mandate for the 6 feet on the benches. How do I say this tactfully? Those clubs are looking to make money. Those club teams are all about, performing well and making money. And we are all about activity and participation level and safety. So we rent the rinks, we rent the facilities that we're going into. They need, obviously it's their facility, but we will mandate what we want to make sure that it's safe. We're not going to use locker rooms. We're going to eliminate the things that were the spreading mechanisms to why those rinks got shut down. I don't know if they were doing the right thing, but they'll do the right thing when our teams are in there.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Anything else? Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you. I'm sure Bill and Avery could connect you with that COVID committee. I think that's a healthy conversation to have. You might learn some things from them, and vice versa. So I think that's a great group to link in, and we'll look forward to, knock on wood, future sports updates.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And, during this public health crisis, we need leadership, and I appreciate everyone on board with this. We're all pulling the same way to make this happen. And so again, I appreciate your support. And, Bill, I'll continue to meet with and talk with Bill about whatever's needed. But yeah, Avery, I definitely want to do that. I think that'll be good for me. Any education I can receive, information I can receive to be more valuable with anything I want to do. So
I think we'll get you an invite for the next meeting. We meet Wednesdays, so it should be in a week. Yep.
Right.
All right, I'm in.
Thank you.
Excellent job, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeff. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And we've got quite the parade of presenters tonight. Up next, we've got our middle school principals joining us for their school improvement plans and updates about how things are going at our middle schools. And I see them logging on now. Welcome, Tim and Chris. Good to see you.
Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Well, I'll start for the both of us. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for inviting us to present our Blanchard and Stony Brook school improvement plans. Dr. Chu and I will briefly summarize some of our projects and progress from 2019, 2020. And then we will highlight our fourth goal in our 2020-2021 plan in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'd like to start by thanking our School Advisory Council at Blanchard. Just want to give a shout out to our members from our school, our staff representatives this year, Michelle Beauregard and Jenny Lawton, Sandra Habe, our community representative from the Millworks, and our parent representatives, Scott Park, Lynn Lambourne, and Lorena Lane, who have been awesome. We have a great group together this year. Some returning members, some new members, which always makes for a great mix. So last year at this time, I shared some of the strategies that we were going to implement in the area of social emotional learning and student engagement, and was met with great support. So I'm pleased to follow up on those items and share that we've had some great success despite the school closing in March. So two areas in particular. The first is our Stride course. I mentioned this last year, and this is something that we're really proud of at Blanchard. We're able to introduce an entirely new course to our curriculum for the start of the 1920 year. We started working on it late in the school year in 1819 and really hit the ground running to get it going for the start of the school year last year. So STRIDE stands for Strategies, Time Management, Readiness, Initiative, Developing Skills, and Evaluating Progress. So again, we really wanted to get this in place for the start of the year and identified an outdated classroom space that we could renovate from bottom to top. We removed some non-functioning ovens, countertops, replaced flooring, repurposed furniture and shelving, and created this beautiful open classroom space for our new course. And the class was built into the rotation at all three grade levels, 6, 7, and 8, and taught by our incredible academic coach. She was just such a visionary. Natalie Sandor made this class such a wonderful success, such a positive experience for our students. The goal was to provide our students with a universal, proactive support that was available to all students, front-loaded instruction in critical academic skills in the areas of executive functioning and just building habits that would prepare students to manage the academics across content areas in the middle school. We had such a high number of students that were being referred for academic coaching. We started to discuss, as we were working with Challenge Success over the years, building in sort of an academic coaching for all model. And this was very well received by our students and staff. The curriculum included lessons in self-assessment, managing time, and strategies to suit individual learning styles. So we're very pleased that even this year in the 2021 model, it was very important to us to preserve this in any shape we could, and we were able to build it in, and it is continuing, and all students will receive this course in all three grades this year. So that's really, really great news there. The other item that I wanted to highlight from last year related is the Transition Center. And this was new for us at Blanchard in 1920. Again, something that we really wanted to implement for the start of the year. It involved a lot of staff education. We had to, again, identify some staffing, resources, a space, and we were able to get it up and running for September. It's a tier 2 level of support, a safe space for students who struggled to access the general education classroom environment for various reasons, whether trauma or some other issue. It was a place to regulate, utilize coping skills, de-escalation techniques, and even just complete schoolwork in a quiet area where they could meet with a trusted adult, with the goal of returning back to the classroom environment successfully. And a wide range of students were able to visit the Student Center. Of course, it's not open this year due to COVID, and we're looking forward to it reopening, but we did see a number of students from all three grades visiting for reasons such as school avoidance, like I said, trauma, anxiety, sometimes when there was a reentry from an outside placement, just to help gradually transition back into the classroom. It was a nice in-between for them. So early on, we saw the success of this model. Students were returning to classes more frequently. We saw increases in class attendance, work production, and students actually began self-referring once they became familiar with the Student Center and start to form a relationship with Mrs. Wilkins, which very easily done. She's just a phenomenal staff member. She's a teaching assistant that worked with all 3 grades, and she's still on staff here at Blanchard. And she really made this model the success that it was. She staffed that student center from arrival to dismissal, saw students all day. And the process was overseen by our counselors, Paige Leone, Lisa Searle, Kevin Merrigan, our school adjustment counselor, Jody Gutselis, our school psychologist, Melissa Werner, also contributed and helped us get it off the ground, Courtney Moran. We consulted on a weekly basis, Mrs. Demons, myself, and the teachers, and really took a close look at every case and an individualized approach. And by March, there were 24 students from, again, all teams across the school that had accessed the student center. And it was really met with a great reception from the staff, from students. And we're really looking forward to getting it back up and running next year, hopefully. And found it to be a very highly effective resource. So those are the 2 areas from Blanchard that I just wanted to touch on, since I kind of mentioned them last year during this presentation, as 2 areas that we were really excited to start. So that's it for the update from Blanchard. And I guess now I'll toss it over to Chris for the Stony Brook update.
All right, thank you. So I'll start as well, thanking our council. So Christy Bates is our co-chair working with me, and we have other parent representatives, Annie Juris, Project Kale, Pooja Krishnamurthy, Artie Mordzinos, Rachel O'Toole, Seema Pusalkar. And our faculty representatives are Michelle Duchesky and Mary Larkin and Meredith Sweet, and Lynn Stater is serving as our community member. We meet on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. This year it's clearly via Google, so we've been having all of our virtual meetings so far, but that's our current council this year. The quick update that I have, basically our 3 goals that we had last year. The first one was establishing Stony Brook as a trauma-invested learning environment for all students that support overall student well-being and academic engagement. And I do believe when the council came together this year and we talked about it, we felt like we did accomplish this goal. We had actually, a lot of it dealt with the professional development that we had been working on earlier. That was also piggybacking work that we've been doing for a couple of years at Stony Brook. So we felt like we had accomplished this goal, even though our other goals were interrupted by, well, the spring. So our second goal, which we felt like we had partially accomplished, was we were looking to expand opportunities across grade levels to create a more cohesive overall school-wide community. We were doing more school-wide assemblies, looking for more interdisciplinary opportunities, even cross-team and cross-grade levels. And so while we did a lot of those things at the beginning of the year, that was clearly interrupted. And so we felt like we've partially accomplished that goal. And we look forward to being able to pick that up again, I think, in the future when we don't have our current state of affairs, if you will. And then our last goal was dealing with the digital citizenship, and we just feel like we didn't accomplish this goal. Much of it was put on the back burner, and then we weren't able to get it off the ground later on in the year. And so that's something that, as a committee, we're excited to look at what that will look like a year from now, hopefully, and we can kind of get back on that train, if you will. Like Mr. Hislop mentioned, we're both interested in focusing on our the 4th goal this year. The schools, I know you heard from the elementary schools already, all of the principals had actually worked and collaborated on these plans quite a bit and brought them to our councils, and the councils were able to help us draft the strategies and the different action items as well. And one of the things that we talked about is that we were excited about the work that we were already doing with this goal 4, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion goal to promote a school environment characterized by tolerance, respect, and safety. And a number of these things were things that we had already been looking at, some things that were part of our social emotional goals in the past. And then this year, the superintendent had asked us to specifically really talk about this theme as a separate goal. So all of the principals were able to do that and really pull out some action items that that we were already including, and then be able to build up on them, I think, a lot more, which I think is great. So the things that both of our schools have a wonderful ADL, A World of Difference program, which is the Anti-Defamation League, A World of Difference, which is a student-run program where the students are becoming mentors and leaders. They're interviewed, they apply to be a part of the program. We have wonderful ADL coordinators who are staff members who have been trained. We've been doing this for a number of years at both schools, and that has really grown, and it's something that we're going to continue to be focusing on with this goal this year. We're also both, we both have folks participating in our district-wide DEI committee, and we have active BAR-WE organizations at the schools as well too. One of the things that we're doing specifically at Stony Brook, which I was really excited about, was that a number of our teachers over the summer had asked if they could start a book club, specifically looking at the first thing they wanted to read was Stamped by Jason Reynolds, based on Ibram Kendi's novel, nonfiction work. And they had a great amount of interest from the students, and so they established the Anti-Racist Social Justice Book Club at Stony Brook. They have 20 students who have been participating. They've been reading through this first book together. They have amazingly vibrant discussions. The teachers have kind of been blown away by how thoughtful and profound the discussions have been. And so that's one of the things specifically that we've been looking at. And our school advisory council also chose to change in our core values of pride at Stony Brook, which is perseverance, respect, integrity, dedication, and it was excellence. We decided to change the E to empathy. So even in our document now, you'll see that they voted to change excellence to empathy, which I thought was a great move. But those are the things that we've been working on specifically, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Hislop.
Thank you. As Chris mentioned, we're very proud of the work that's already been started in this area. It's certainly been a united effort across the district, and Chris and I are very lucky to share some staff members that have been leaders in many of these groups that go in between buildings. So they really help us keep both buildings on the same page. So this year, we're going to continue to support a lot of the programs that have been implemented in recent years. And we're also able to introduce a couple new groups that are, of course, meeting virtually that I thought I would highlight. As Chris mentioned, the AWOD, A World of Difference Student and Staff Anti-Bias Training is going to continue this year. It's been in place at Blanchard for the past couple of years. It's led by two of our teachers, Kelly Wolber and Catherine Pastori, as well as Amy Bailey, three. And they are charged with cultivating a school climate that's free from bias, racism, and their efforts have really centered on some school-wide lessons and trainings that encourage students and staff to recognize bias, examine their own practices and beliefs and behaviors to build understanding. And this program really gives students an active voice and role in that process. And for 2021 at Blanchard, we had 12 student leaders that returned to the group, which was really nice. And they were able to open the group up, and they're looking for, I believe, 15 more students. They're in the process of accepting and reviewing applications now. And they've already provided 2 activities this year to give you a brief overview. They were delivered in advisory to all students, remote and hybrid. And the first, although very simple, very important and meaningful, was centered on every student's name. And students were asked to record their own name and the correct pronunciation that they were able to share with their teachers right in the first day of school, which I think set a really nice tone. The second activity was recent, just this month. It was a mini lesson during which students were asked to consider their digital impressions, their icons in particular, and intent versus impact. So this is really the work that we're hoping that will continue with this group, developing these lessons, delivering them to students, and also serving as resources for our staff and students when these questions and concerns come up, these really important questions and concerns. And to help address them, they've continued with office hours. They're holding them virtually, and they've made themselves available, our advisors, for students to drop in and ask questions, raise concerns, or bring up points related to the different lessons that they have implemented and plan to continue to with that for the remainder of the school year. Another student group, this is new, is called BIPOC. It stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And this is a student group that is open to anyone who identifies as a member of one of these marginalized groups. This club, again, is meeting virtually, and I believe it was also open to Stony Brook students as well, which is really nice to be able to combine students from both of the buildings. And they've held 2 meetings already, and they're advised by Deepa Talwalkar, our math interventionist, and Kanika Gupta, one of our teaching assistants. A third group that I wanted to give a big shout out to and highlight is our Pride Alliance, a new group for 2020-21. This group was initiated by one of our students. It's an after-school club, again, virtual, for members of the LGBTQIA community. It's advised by Kelly Wolber and guidance counselor Kevin Merrigan, and they've already held 1 meeting, and I'm excited that I was invited to join them for their second meeting tomorrow at 2. Students can join either one of these groups, the BIPOC group or the Pride Alliance group, by accessing the links in their grade level Google Classrooms that were created by the guidance counselors. And we've been promoting these in our daily announcements and in our newsletters. So if you have a student that might be interested, just encourage them to access their guidance Google Classrooms for the links. And finally, as Chris mentioned, we have an extension of our school-wide equity and anti-racist efforts. Members of our school community are going to continue to be active in 2 district groups, the DEI Committee and BARWE, which stands for Building Anti-Racist White Educators, a district-wide adult discussion group that is meeting monthly via Google Meet. And for all of these different initiatives that we have in this area, Mrs. Demons and I have been building time into our faculty meeting for discussion, for updates from our representatives. We have some very dedicated staff and a wonderful collective group that is just in the right mindset and has done such a wonderful job embracing all of these different initiatives that we put into place. And we continue to publicize them with our students and in weekly newsletters with the parents. So we're really excited about the rest of this year is going to bring. Despite the challenges, we've got some really good things happening in this area.
Thank you both for that presentation. That's just amazing. I have to say that in the current climate of the public health crisis and the challenges that you both must be facing just in day-to-day functioning in this just extraordinary year, to hear both of you focus on DEI concerns is just so heartening, because I think this is a year where administrators could have said, oh, there's too much on our plate, that'll have to wait on a back burner. And clearly you and your staff, your schools aren't viewing it that way. It's very much on the front burner, and it's very encouraging and heartening to see. I think it will mean a lot to our students, and it will mean a lot to the future of our school system that you're making that a priority even under extraordinarily challenging circumstances. So I specifically wanted to say thank you to you and your staff members who are making DEI concerns such a priority this year. Extraordinary. Other comments, questions? Oh, please, Dr. Chu, go ahead.
Well, I was just actually going to say that I think that, thank you for saying that, but I also think it just speaks again to the fact that we clearly as a district do embrace this, because we wouldn't be able to do this at the middle school level if we were constantly being, I think, criticized by the school committee or by leadership. And it saddens me when I'm looking at different school districts around the country where administrators and teachers are reprimanded and getting in trouble for trying to support students' exploration of social justice. And so I'm really proud to be a part of an area where we recognize that this is part of what's coming into the school. So we need to be prepared to be able to support people and address it and have difficult conversations.
And part of our challenge is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I mean, I think that's a challenge that we're all embracing. And that isn't just a challenge for one person or one group. It's a district-wide commitment that I think we're all making to each other. So thank you for that. I know I saw some other hands, so let me get other people into the conversation. Alicia.
So thank you both for the focus on social emotional supports that are continuing and the focus on DEI. I think once we get back to whatever normal looks like, we keep saying normal, but once we get back to in-person learning, I think we're going to need to really focus on our social emotional and our equity issues, because there are things that are happening in this pandemic situation that will have far-reaching ramifications. I wanted to call out the ADL, the Student A World of Difference groups. I know that we hear from them usually during a regular school year. I hope we can still find a time to do that this year. I would love to hear from them. Specifically too, though, Bill, I'd like to suggest that the DEI extend an invitation to some of these middle school clubs to maybe come address the DEI in spring. I know the whole school committee, it's a little public and we want them to be able to speak freely, but I think DEI committee is a great place for these middle school clubs to be invited to speak to us maybe on some of the things they've learned and give us their perspective, because we're getting the high school perspective. I'd love to hear from our middle schoolers as well.
I will just say that the leaders are part of the DEI committee. So the middle school leaders from both buildings volunteered to be on the committee, so they're already connected to the committee. So I think that would be a really easy way to get some students invited at some point.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We'll do that and make that connection.
Other questions or comments from the committee? I'm not seeing any hands, which I think that means everybody just thought that was awesome. So thank you so much for everything you're doing during this extraordinary year to support our students and our staff. And please come visit us again sometime. It's wonderful to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris and Tim.
Thank you,
Great
guys.
job.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you. Be safe, everyone. And next up, we're moving up the age grades to our high school improvement plan. And I see we have Principal Antonelli logging on.
Good evening.
Hi, Jim. Welcome. The floor is yours.
There we go. Okay, good evening. And first of all, happy Thanksgiving to all of you and your families. I wish you the very best during this troubled time, very unprecedented time. And so certainly hope that you have an enjoyable Thursday with as many family members as possible. And of course, maintaining the guidelines as I continue to put out, stay healthy, stay safe, and continue to social distance. I first of all want to start off by thanking Jeff Bunyan for an outstanding presentation this evening. Jeff did a terrific job this fall. Again, in unprecedented times, he is a person that is attention to detail, which I greatly appreciate. And I just think that he followed all the guidelines to the T and did a great job providing over 300 student athletes a great experience this past fall. So thank you to Jeff. I'd also like to thank our school council members, two members of the faculty, Wendy Pakacek and Bill Saunders. Our community member, Karen Benway. And Karen is actually in a unique situation right now because she's also a teaching assistant in the building right now, working with one of our chemistry teachers who has a health situation. And Karen is actually the teacher within the classroom while the chemistry teacher teaches in a remote location. In order to keep certain teachers in the building, we needed to make some adjustments. And Karen has done a great job forging a wonderful opportunity to work with one of our chemistry teachers and to create a great relationship. And it appears to be working quite well. We also have Silas Mark, who's a parent, and Claire O'Brien, who is a parent and also our co-chair. We've got 4 students. Actually, one of the students has left and went to a different committee, but I want to thank Prisha Mark, Alexandra Ryan, Colin Hoare, and Meghna Kumar. They've done a terrific job. We actually had one meeting in person to basically finalize what our plan was, and we socially distanced, used the lecture hall, and it was a good experience. And then we just met last week for a follow-up meeting, and it was quite a lengthy meeting, about 2 hours, and discussed many things on the agenda. The current data that we have is shifting a little bit from the plan that I sent into you right now. In our hybrid pod A, we went from 671 students to 667 students. And in pod B, went from 599 in pod A to 600. So we have some students moving around a little bit. And it's basically been an increase from remote learning, which started out at 349 and is now up to 358 students. So we have a difference of 9. We have 20 dual enrollment students at this time at the high school. So we have had some parents decide to make a shift from hybrid to RLA. And we've also accommodated several students basically throughout the year so far that have wanted to move from RLA to hybrid, if we can make sure we meet the needs of those particular students, meaning that the classrooms are not overloaded. It would mean a huge change to the students' schedule and impact the classroom negatively. And those parents have been really appreciative because RLA isn't for everybody. And so we've worked very closely to make sure that it's a good fit for everybody. It's very easy to go from hybrid to remote learning, but at the high school, you know that the classes are mixed classes, and we're really trying hard to keep our classes in the range of 12, 13 students so that we can keep the social distancing based on the space. All of you walk the building with me and you notice the different sizes of rooms at the high school. So some highlights from the 2019 and 2020 school year. You would think that maybe there'd be a hiatus with the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, but they too know how to Zoom and Google. And so last week, they sent me a letter indicating that they've accepted some dates for us to have a virtual visit. And those dates are from March 21st to Sunday, March 21st to Wednesday, March 24th. The nice thing about this being virtual is it is a huge budget savings. As you may remember in some of the past visits, we have to accommodate upwards to 12 to 16 individuals based on the size of the school. And you have to put them up at a hotel, and you incur significant costs when it comes to lodging and food and so forth. So last week when I went back and forth with one of the commissioners, associate directors, excuse me, I asked whether or not he anticipated that perhaps we would be in person, and he guaranteed me, and I printed it out, that we were going to be going virtual in March so that we won't incur any large expense. And hopefully I'm going to see Ingrid start to smile, and I see Bill smiling and Gary smiling. So that's a good thing in a really tight budget year. So I'm very enthusiastic about it. It's a nice program. I've already got the outline for it. And as you can see, some of the highlights we talked about, there were basically four goals that NEASC wanted to see from us when they did a collaborative conference back in November of 2018. And it was to utilize a consistent format for curriculum, which we use as Understanding by Design, UBD. Create opportunities for collaboration, and we've found opportunities to do that during the school day and after the school day for interdepartmental work and cross-departmental work. We, as you know, we are a Google school, and fortunately, with the help of Julie Bedreau and our assistant superintendent, we have a great platform of Chromebooks that we're utilizing, and thank goodness that we have those in place. And things seem to be getting better and better every day. We actually just had, I believe it was 10 outside units put on the building. So as the weather gets a little bit better, we were hoping to have them done in the fall, but everybody was straight out busy. These will be an opportunity for folks to get outside the building to do some outside educational experiences in the spring. So the NEASC wanted us to have one learning management system to de-stress the students and de-stress the faculty, and we have the Google Classroom. And we're also working on the vision of the graduate. We still have a few things to do there, and core values for the high school. So we'll be working on that leading up to the visit, the virtual tour. And from there, what happens is NEASC will come back with some recommendations and commendations. And it's always a work in progress. And normally what you do is a 2-year or a 5-year plan following up with the accreditation institution. We also introduced, and I want to thank former curriculum coordinator for foreign language, the Seal of Biliteracy. We had 55 students who took multiple exams last year. We had 6 students receive the Seal of Biliteracy with distinction, and 29 received the Seal of Biliteracy. Another accomplishment from last year is we worked with the Community Preservation Committee, and we were able to fund the amenities building, as you know, at the last town meeting. We have recently decided that will break ground a little bit later for budgetary reasons again. When you do a concrete building and you try to attack a concrete building in the middle of winter, you can incur additional expenses to trying to keep the building warm. And so talking with the contractor, we decided to break ground in hopefully early March, which will negate some of those expenses we could have occurred, which is terrific. I was able to visit one of a career exposition opportunity last year in Marlborough, and this was one of our parents, Silas Mark, was hoping that we could maybe bring some kind of career exposition for students for summer work. It was an outstanding presentation, and it was at a major hotel down in Marlborough, and I actually was networking with some of the individuals who run the organization, hoping to bring a smaller type fit to Westford Academy. But then March 13th came. Reminds me every day that that's my birthday, that our crisis hit. So I'll never forget that birthday of 52 years old on March 13th. We also, as Jeff mentioned earlier, Jeff Bunyan mentioned, we posted several athletic events that I've been working hard, and I worked with Jeff to make it one of his goals, because I've been working so hard to try and make it happen. But with the thanks to Sean for pushing it along, we've been able to get out many more athletic events, and we hope to do the same thing this winter. To your point, Valerie, I have some of the similar concerns, and we'll work very closely. We are working really, really hard to make this year the best possible in the current situation that we have. These students deserve it. They really do. And they've earned the opportunity to participate in as much as possible. Miss Murphy, Dean of Students, Betsy Murphy, the other day shared with our school council that we've got 47 co-curricular activities going on right now. We had 300 student athletes participate in the fall. These are all things that are wonderful opportunities for the social and emotional well-being of our students. So, those are some of the highlights. We do have still things that we need to move on from last year, but we as a leadership team talked about creating some common goals. And goal number 1 was for the school year 2021 was to keep things moving forward and to utilize basically some of the committees that met over the summer months. To keep WA open, to keep us moving forward. It's great to get to this milestone at this point, getting to Thanksgiving. Many of us thought that we wouldn't even be open this far based on the current situation. To get to Thanksgiving, I am very, very pleased, and hope we continue to move forward. We've got so many things in place since your visit. Things have come in to make sure that our students are following all the proper procedures, and they have been wonderful. I was just thinking today as students were departing from the building, grabbing their lunches, and kudos to Colleen Wallace and her crew of lunch cafeteria folks that work so hard every single day. handing out lunches to the families in need. Those are the little unsung hero things that are happening every single day. D-bus pulling up on time, a little bit later, than we wanted. They're not coming at 6:55. They're showing up at 7:10, and maybe the students are on the bus for 5 minutes, and then they're in the building at 7:15. These are all little things that we wanted to make happen for our students. So we've got a bunch of great things in place to keep our school open, and the students are doing a great job. The teachers are doing a great job, and they really are working really, really hard. In the area of teaching and learning, again, we want to continue to make sure we keep students in school, and we're meeting the needs both of our RLA students and our hybrid students, and we continue to tweak things along the way. The teachers are working really hard, as I mentioned earlier, but the students are as well. And sometimes the students get a little frustrated with day-to-day operations in regards to scheduling. So I'm going to share that with the faculty again as we enter the month of December, because some students are finding it difficult to keep up with the pace. And even though there's 3 classes a day, we want to tweak that a little bit. And there have been some significant moves, but again, we want to make sure that everybody's feeling comfortable in our current situation. The reports last week from the school council students were very positive. And I feel as though, both the RLA students and the hybrid students are having a good experience. I've done some informal conversations with parents along the way. And they appreciate students having the opportunity to be in school. They appreciate the opportunity for those students who want to be in RLA because they made a family decision. And we certainly respect the decisions that they've made. So in the teaching and learning, again, we're going to really focus on making sure that we're really fine-tuned. Although we feel like we're in really good shape for the NEASC visit, we do need to make sure that we have everything in the right location so that they can grab those things. When I was looking through the booklet today on how to run virtual tour, there are a lot of details. So we have to, dig into those details and make sure that we're ready for them. You will also be invited as school committee members to be part of this visit through a Zoom or a Google Meet to share some of your experiences. So I'll be setting all that up and sharing a schedule with you as we get closer to probably early February. And then the schedule will come out for the March 21st virtual accreditation visit, decennial visit. In the area of goal number 3, social and emotional, we have continued we're getting the results back from the panorama survey, and kudos to Wendy Pakacek for that leadership, and Brian Rourke from the Health and Wellness Department, and to Kerry and Bill for bringing this forward, because we want to look at the data to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students. We know that there are students that are hurting out there, and we have to continue to work. Today, actually, I sent out a pretty lengthy email. Some of you may have received it in regards to a list of things that our guidance department is doing to try and reach out to our students. Claire O'Brien, our co-chair from the school council, said, Jim, sometimes the devil's in the details, and people need to know all the good things that are happening. So I will be sending out a follow-up for athletics. I will be sending out a follow-up for the winter athletics, what that might look like. Also, and I want to thank Wendy Pakacek for all the work that she has done with her guidance department, because there is a lot going on behind the scenes to support students in this most difficult time. Also had a visit with Challenge Success, John Kleinman. We met about a week and a half ago, and they were putting together a video to basically reintroduce somewhat of what's going on with Challenge Success. We know that, I think a majority of the folks in our community know that we're worried about the well-balanced student, well-balanced child. And I always say you're only as happy as your least happy child. And so, and I want to emphasize that. So they're going to put together a video that we share with the parent community and the student community, again, because we had an opportunity last March, right around the end of March, to do a survey, which was funded by the Westford Academy trustees, to do our follow-up survey. The class that graduated last year was our initial survey, and we didn't have an opportunity. I was planning on April, before they went on their capstone, to do that survey to get the follow-up results. So that's the reason why we want to reintroduce Challenge Success and some of the accomplishments that we've had and then run the survey again, hopefully before the end of this year, once it's reintroduced, and we can highlight a lot of the things that we've done to support our students and our faculty and our families with challenge success. And as Chris and Tim pointed out, the work with AWOD will continue at the high school with student and staff trainings, and our participation in diversity inclusion committee as well, Equity and Inclusion Committee and BARWE. So we have those highlighted under goal number 4, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as you know, currently we did some work last week with a student survey in regards to the school's mascot. And I'll be doing some additional work, pulling together a committee to review that and have some additional discussions. So a lot going on at the high school, exciting, and we just want to keep it rolling. We love seeing the students every day. I go over every Monday morning the expectations as they leave, and we say goodbye for a week. They come back in, we review the expectations, but they've got it down pat now. Our students are great. You know, and as I stand outside every day in the morning, in the afternoon, or the early morning, in the earlier afternoon around 11 o'clock, you know, the please and thank yous and have a great afternoon. That's what comes from these students. They're happy to be back, those that are here. And I believe that our LA students are quite happy and engaged as well. And so I feel very blessed that we're back at this time. I know you guys know as a committee that we were struggling weeks before school was about to open. And with the support of the superintendent, assistant superintendent, our HR department, we were able to get us up and running, and I just want to keep it rolling. My next is beyond the holiday, and then we'll focus on another milestone as we continue to roll on.
One step at a time, one day at a time. Yeah, thank you for that update of everything that's happening at the high school. And you know, you alluded to it yourself, Jim. I know there were challenges to getting any school in the district up and running, but there were unique and special challenges to get the high school up and running with just the huge breadth of offerings for our students, and with all students, you know, not within a particular cohort, and on very unique schedules. And for all of that to come together was really an extraordinary effort from you and the curriculum coordinators and the deans and your whole leadership team. So thank you very much for all of your efforts. I mean, it clearly pays off in how, you know, both hybrid students and RLA students have been able to, you know, access that entire curriculum and all of those wonderful courses that you offer every year, and the fact that they still have that opportunity to access all of those great in-classroom experiences, but now also have such access to athletics and co-curricular activities as well. Testament to you and your whole staff for making it all work under challenging circumstances. So questions or comments from the committee? Alicia?
So among everything else you have to deal with, we're approaching that wonderful time of the year where our seniors start looking at colleges. And I know that there's been a lot of, across the state, it's been tough to get SATs scheduled. And I know seniors are they're trying to figure out how to navigate this really, I wish we could stop saying the word unique or unprecedented, but this is unlike any other application season we've ever seen. How are you guys doing with that? Do you have plans for, you know, I know there's a lot that WA does to mitigate stress during final season and, you know, things like that. How are we doing as far as, are our kids able to schedule SATs? Are we finding anyone who's falling through the cracks on that? Is there anything we can do to support that?
Thank you for that, and thank you for that question. It is a challenge for both PSATs and SATs, finding folks who want to oversee those different tests and such. So we're working closely with Wendy Pakacek to pursue opportunities for that, Alicia. You know, we also have MCAS coming up, and, you know, we're scheduling those opportunities that we just sent in our file for January. So we've got a lot of testing coming up. for students for the second half of the year. So we need to find some ways, we need to be creative, and there are students that are finding different opportunities in different school systems. But, you know, I feel very strongly, and I've said this from the get-go, is it's my job to make sure as many opportunities happen for these students here in Westford on our campuses. And that's my primary focus right now. So I'm hoping that I can be able to pull off all these things. And that was one of the things that came from school council last week was some of the parents are asking questions about SAT, PSAT, and the upcoming MCAS. So that'll, again, will be another one of my briefings. Folks may be a little bit tired of hearing from me, but it was one of the requests from school council, and they said information is power. And if people are looking for that, certainly I want to push those pieces of information out. It's, and they're available, and we'll get that to folks over the next couple of weeks so that they can get settled. Because I know, you know, as we approach, you know, November and the end of November, and students are thinking about and anticipating what their next steps are for seniors, we want to make sure that we de-stress as much as possible.
Fantastic. Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Other comments, questions? Avery.
Thank you, Jim. It sounds like there's a lot going on at WA, as usual. And you're doing a fabulous job juggling it all day to day. Quick question, you mentioned the mascot. You were going to start, you asked some students about it.
Yep.
Any temperature on their thoughts, or is it too early to tell? How, was it to everybody sort of question? Because I know that's still on the burner. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Last week we had an advisory block, and Dean Betsy Murphy pulled together with the help of some students a survey. And what we're doing now, Avery, is trying to collect that information and get it into a good format for us so we can share that out with the student committee that I'm going to pull together. Again, I also want to meet with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to have a discussion with them and share these results. Everything needs to be transparent and have this conversation. Again, it's not a survey where we're asking to pit students against each other. We're collecting information right now and just trying to educate people in this process so that we can ultimately make the best decision.
Great, thank you. I'm glad to hear there's, you know, we're involving the students. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds like a healthy process. And I guess I had another process, I guess, kind of question. You mentioned as part of the NEASC evaluation that you were looking at core values of the school and a vision of the graduate. And I understand that's a daunting task. There's a lot there, and that's a work in progress. But what do you envision the process for identifying those and developing that to look like? Or who are the stakeholders who are going to be involved in that process?
Well, again, we're going to try and get as many stakeholders as possible moving forward as we start to develop this. And I don't see this as a process that will be complete by the end of this year. I would look for some feedback. This is a whole new set of standards that NEASC is using. The old set of standards are gone, and we're basically moving into the new set of standards. And so the vision of the graduate and the core values, they're still continuing to tweak and to fix with schools and to work with schools and so forth. So we need to get as many stakeholders as possible, look at our core values and our vision in Westford, and see how they match up with Westford Academy, and go through the process, but make sure that as many stakeholders are involved as possible, students and staff and family members, parents, and community members as well, as we develop this vision of the graduate, which are really some new words that have come out on NEASC over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting opportunity for kind of self-assessment and kind of vision for the future at the same time. Sounds fascinating. Any other comments, questions? Okay. then I guess we will say thank you very much for everything you're doing and everything our high school staff is doing, and carry on, and we'll continue to knock on wood and think good thoughts for the upcoming holidays, that everyone is safe and healthy, and we keep moving forward.
I like that. Thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Absolutely.
Great job, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Thank you. And now I guess, oh, I did have, I'm going to divert quickly because I have an apology that I missed a question in the chat. I hope the parent who asked it is still online. But it was during the COVID update, and I'm sorry I hadn't refreshed my screen, so I missed it. The question was kind of what is the end game? When might we be looking at a full return to school? What are the I guess I'll add to the question because I think, Bill, you touched on this in terms of the metrics, but maybe if you could just explain a little more about the metrics that are being developed, and that those metrics aren't just for if numbers worsen, could it require full remote learning, but if numbers improve, when could that lead to full return, kind of how that process is working. So I
think
to address that.
Yeah, I think we'll move closer to a full return when there certainly is a significant distribution of a reliable vaccine. The incidence of the virus begins to decrease. There doesn't seem to be any indication of that at the present time. I also there are a couple of pieces. There's a strictly quantitative piece in terms of the DPH data, the incidence rate per 100,000, the positivity test rate that comes from the DPH, the numbers of students in our school system who test positive and in close contact. But there's also a very important qualitative measure, and that is how does this impact our staff? Because many school systems are struggling to find substitutes, either day-to-day or long-term, to fill in. And how does a staff who are, will we realize some staff who are in-house teaching right now, might they possibly want to take a leave if everyone comes back because of some immunocompromised member of their family? So there's a lot of moving parts here, and the COVID Advisory Committee will be discussing all these. It's way back when, I think a lot of school systems thought that there was some magic number that you would reach, and then you could flip the switch and you either go fully remote or you full return. That's not necessarily the case because we have children involved who we know have a lower transmission rate than adults. But the other part of that equation is we also have adults in very great numbers in those high-risk age ranges. And so those are the things we have to always keep an eye on. So, I hate to give a long and rather vague answer, but there is no magic number that you reach. It's going to evolve through conversation with the COVID Advisory Committee, with you, all of you, and with our administrators. So, and I'll be glad to, if anyone would like to get together, if, in terms of remote meeting to address specific COVID issues, I'll be very glad to do that. I'll get our nurses together and maybe a couple of the physicians on the COVID Advisory Committee and a couple of you, and we'll talk it through, because there's a lot of misunderstanding out there in terms of when we make changes.
Yeah, I appreciate you circling back to that. Again, I do apologize to the parent for that I missed the question earlier. So thank you for circling back.
And can I just add, Bill,
Yep,
the other big piece that we can't forget is that we physically can't put kids in the schools until the 6-foot rule is relaxed and in conjunction with the vaccine. I want to see that the 3 feet or less is scientifically, valid, and the CDC uses that as its go-to, not the 6 feet.
Right. Excellent point.
Well, and I appreciated, Bill, that you shared with all of us kind of a statement from the Mass Association of School Superintendents that touched on that point, that it's not just a declaration that 3 feet is safe now, that there has to be evidence and community confidence that
Right.
that 3 feet would be safe. Because right now, I don't think we have that community confidence among many of our parents and certainly among our staff. So I think there's a way to go on that journey. And the other thing that I think often people forget, that statement that you shared with us mentioned, was busing capacity.
That's right.
There are limitations on bus capacity and spacing, and it's just not, at this point, in terms of the number of buses we have and the distances required, a full return just wouldn't physically be possible at this point with our busing and spacing needs. So it is
I
all
think
work in progress.
I think what is occurring now is there's hardly any of us who don't have either a friend, acquaintance, or a family member that hasn't tested positive, or at least it's been considered a close contact. And so it's hitting closer and closer to home. And I think people are understanding more and more why we've taken all these precautions. So but I'll be glad to engage anyone in a conversation, a very respectful conversation, because I want you to have as much information as possible.
Well, thank you again. Sorry for the diversion to circle back, but I'm glad we got the parents' question addressed. And I'm sure if there are additional follow-ups, please feel free to reach out, email, contact us, as a lot of parents have done. And without further ado, and no more digressions, capital.
I believe we have Paul, who is going to give you a presentation.
Yeah, I see he's in the attendees. Yeah, we just need to make him a panelist.
There we go.
Welcome, Paul. I see you're joining us. Thanks for logging in tonight to talk to us about capital. Thank you.
You're on. There you go.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. What was the best way to do this? Is it best just to go through kind of an executive summary of all the items that were recently asked for at last Friday's joint capital meeting there hosted by the town?
Yeah, I know we got the documents in the packet, but yeah, if you could give us your kind of executive summary of those items and why those were the priorities chosen for this year, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I'd like to take a moment while I still have the spotlight to say, how grateful I certainly am for all the custodians and all the maintenance's hard work. Part of the reason why our buildings are in such great shape is because of them, and especially too now with COVID-19, their work has really just been tremendous. In fact, just 20 minutes ago, 4 of them left to go to the highway department to help out with a quick cleaning over there. So they're really just so versatile, and they do such a great job. With that being said, one of the first items that we asked for this year was to replace a couple of pumps, 3 pumps in specific, at the day school. It's kind of considered normal capital maintenance. They're definitely past the point of life expectancy, and they predate the quote unquote new addition that was thrown on to the day school as well. There's a chance that when we go about replacing these, not only will we get the new piece of equipment, to protect against, near failures in the future, but there's a chance that we may see another additional component of it as well, in the fact that the new wing may just in fact get a better heating circulation through their system as well. So we're hoping to see that additional benefit from going about. Oh, here we are. Thank you. Sure. So this is the slide that I'm talking about, and those are the pumps that you can see there on the left, lining up. They're the red ones, again, going, closest to us all the way up north. That's the newest one. So again, we're hoping to replace those three. And as mentioned, one of the benefits is that the new wing may have hotter, better air towards that, or better air circulation. I shouldn't say circulation, just warmer air going through it. The current pumps right now are a little bit slower. So by the time the hot water gets there at the end of the loop, usually the hot water is a little less in temperature. One of the items that we did present towards them during this time was that the boiler, as seen on the right, is something that we need to entertain replacing in the future. It's original to the school, about 6 years old. And we could potentially do the two projects together, but I didn't urge them that there's not necessarily an urgency to move forward with the boiler project, although it needs to be done. I recognize that, this year is obviously tight for numerous reasons, and if need be, it can certainly be passed along. It's just a very inefficient boiler. So that was the first request. Jumping on to slide 4, our next request here was for a new preschool and kindergarten playground. On the right-hand side, you can see an aerial photo of what the Robinson school system looks like. All the way on the right of that photograph, you can see their current existing K through 2 playground. All the way on the left-hand side where the purple arrow indicates, there's an existing rock playground, which is not used over there. It's in very rough condition. Again, it's rocked. It really predates all codes and is borderline unsafe. So I guess that the theory here would be to replace that playground and take it down at a minimum, or otherwise also when hiring a designer, we could certainly considering doing addition renovation to the existing K2 playground if it's capable of accommodating it. That's certainly a question that we can phase out to the designer during this process. Half of this capital request was kind of triggered through the components of Bill and his team being able to repurpose the pre-K classrooms located at the Millennium between a series of schools, one of which is the Robinson. The other 2 school systems are all set. They have a pre-K dedicated play space, but the Robinson's really lacking one. So we certainly want to get it to an equitability type of stance. I myself am not an educator, even though I like to pretend to be one sometimes. I know how important, though, it is at the end of the day that these children get this time, and that it's an integral part in their upbringings and learning. So that was pretty much this capital request here to entertain essentially a new pre-K playground. There's a highlighted image of it on the left for what it could potentially look like. We're estimating it to be anywhere between $365,000 and $440,000 with the design work, with the construction. And there's certainly room to move up and down depending upon the needs that we see. So that's slide 4. Jumping on to slide 5, we're suggesting the replacement of a new gymnasium floor at the Robinson Elementary School. These are current photos of it. There is definitely water damage that's occurred over time, and it is a 30-year-old gym floor, which is a great life expectancy for that gym. So it's right along the times for where we would need to be doing some sort of rework to it. Something that I will be exploring in the very near future is, in fact, if MIIA, our insurance carrier, will recover the floor replacement of this. I certainly think that we have great arguments that we can present to them. So there's a chance that this one may be lifted completely from the capital planning, and we may be able to do this in-house with the support of our insurance carrier. Seeing no questions yet, I'm going to move on to slide number 6, which I believe is the fire alarm panel that we have at Westford Academy. It dates the time of the addition, which I believe was about 20 years ago or so put on. A fire alarm panel is kind of capable of lasting anywhere from 20 years. We've seen them last all the way to 60 years. This, unfortunately, is at the beginning time of its replacement. Nonetheless, we are getting a series of nuisance alarms, and there's cause for concern for some other areas as well. I have talked with the fire department and the contractor, BEF Enterprise, who is the one recommending replacing it. And we're kind of all in agreement that right now it's simply a priority 1. However, the respective parties have been noted that if it does become a major issue, we will just have to move forward with a project regardless, because we don't want to certainly make sure, or we want to certainly make sure that nobody's life is in jeopardy here. So it's really just major. It's really just a major component for relaying fire alarms to the fire station and through the building. The next slide, slide number 7. So on the top of Westford Academy, there are about 12 air handling units, all about 1998. So about that 20-year mark. And we asked for a capital plan appropriation in the past, about 2 years back, in which there's about $8,422 remaining in that appropriation. And that appropriation is kind of the same as this one, as we're asking for support to continue replacing some components of these of the air handlers to keep these units running. Unfortunately, we just had a major one hit us. It's one of the largest units on Westford Academy. And one of the components inside of it, the compressor, which is the system which helps to create that cool conditioned air, that unfortunately just failed. And we're projecting that to be about $30,816 to replace. So certainly 8,422 is not enough to handle that. Right now, the auditorium does still have partial air conditioning, and because of COVID-19, we haven't been able to pack it to 100% capacity. So we're certainly okay for now. So I guess that's one silver lining, I guess, we've seen with this whole COVID-19 outbreak. But it's certainly troubling. Ultimately, at the bottom here, I've presented another alternative with them, in which we could entertain a project probably upwards of about $2 million. And we should, in the near future, entertain a project to replace all the air handling packaging units in totality on top of the roof. It's a really fundamental capital plan project in which we'll be asking for $50,000 year after year after year just to keep up with it. So I think the best way to go about it will be probably next year to really ask for some design money or even design and construction money. So that is slide 7 there. Slide 8. We presented this project last year. Again, due to hard, difficult times, we took it off and we're simply putting it forth again. We're asking for the replacement truck with a plow. That is a picture of the vehicle that we are asking to replace. As you can see, it's not in the greatest of conditions. So we here do our own in-house snow removal with the assistance of the highway department, who's always been phenomenal, but we certainly want to try to keep up and hold our own. And these trucks are just a great integral part of our operations. So we have a quote on that and we're asking to replace it again. And we'll continue to monitor that to see how far that gets along the lines. The next system here, slide number 9, student information systems. Although I can sit here all day and tell you about my knowledge for these, I think I'm going to pass this on to if Carrie is on or somebody else who wants to talk about it. I'm glad to pass it over.
Sure, I touched upon it in my opening remarks earlier, but our student information system is the hub of how everything works throughout the district, between student information and the state reporting and scheduling and grading and interacting with our other systems such as eSped and iHealth. And our iPass system is antiquated and has caused a lot of frustration. There are some things that we simply don't do because it's too cumbersome to do in iPass, and there are a lot more up-to-date systems out there that other districts are using and are very pleased with. So we're going through a process of evaluating the different vendors and bringing them in for demos. And it's just something that we have, it's been a long time coming, and we're fortunate to be able to make this request for this upcoming year.
Yeah. May I just say, this has been in our capital plan for about 10 years. It's time right now. It has fallen down on the priority because of greater townwide needs. But as Kerry said, this is one of the backbones of the operation of any school system.
Great. So moving along to slide 10 here. Oh, we threw this one in. Oh, this is perfect. Okay. So this is a slide that was thrown in really last second, but something that we hadn't kind of known about. We were just still working through figures. We've done a great job. Mike Wells, who's the director of IT, the IT department's just truly phenomenal, and they've taken a run with replacing all of the school phones, and ultimately designed to replace all the phones throughout the whole entire school system. This is something that the Town and School Safety Task Force was definitely aware of and a part of. The thought was that the first thing we wanted to do was improve communications throughout the whole entire school system. So when we set out to do this task, one of the things that we thought would be a nice to have would be to include the telephone's ability to tap right into the existing PA system. We were successful at every single school so far. We just have a couple newer schools to do. Newer being 20 years old, but still, we don't see any reasons for issues. We weren't successful, unfortunately, at the day school, so we're asking for a little bit of funding to stay uniform across the board, and to ultimately replace components of the PA system. The picture on the left is the speaker, which would be shown in one of the classrooms, and the picture on the right is that system, which I've never seen before. It's quite antiquated and pretty impressive to run. So the new system would be much more user-friendly and state-of-the-art.
Yeah.
So again, that's another great initiative that we have here for this one.
That control panel would probably wind up in Steve Scully's classroom of historical relics. If you can take a look at how dated that is right now.
You should see the back of it. It's almost even more impressive. So great. Slide 11, I think it is. Slide 10. Okay, perfect. This is one that's obviously been seen in the past. The selectmen are certainly aware of it, and it's been brought up at previous town meetings in which they were asked to investigate it. So it did make it on here again, in which I think obviously it's going to continue to follow the ropes that are inside, in the sense of it sounds like we're trying to figure out what the future of a lot of buildings are within the inside of the town of Westford there, right at the on Main Street there. So I think that when a couple things play itself out, this will certainly continue to get a lot of momentum. I think the objective here is to make sure that we don't lose the momentum that we started and to continue on with it. As you can see, that's the building right there on the right. All the trailers just stacked on top of one another. We've certainly had our issues with it, and it's served the town tremendously over the last 20 years. I think it'd be hard to argue, but I think that its time here is no longer necessarily needed in the future. So slide 11. Okay, so we talked about just a few those are our requests that we're bringing forth this year. I know that one of the questions was, how did we come to these things? I definitely want to thank the principals and the head custodians again, just for helping us to keep informed, helping us to create a capital plan, to be mindful of what items really we need to go after this year, with I think one of the main objectives to make sure that we're not dipping into operational costs. So if we continue to go after those capital plans to avoid operational costs, then I think that we're doing our part the best we can for the budget each year. So these were kind of seen as priority one tasks that monies that are things that worry us and things that we definitely need to take care of to either fix a safety reason or an equitability reason. So yeah, I think that's generally how we got there. There are 3 more slides that I'd like to go through briefly, jumping down to slide 12. This is something that was presented last year. We did a study back in 2018. There was a design consulting company brought in to evaluate the remaining life and integrity of each of the building roofs. So this was presented last year. It was again presented this year to say we need to start considering doing something. On the left, you can see the age and the Blanchard roof. And for those that can't really read the bottom of the color key, red is bad and it just gets better from there. But both of these buildings are considered bad from anywhere from 0 to 1 years remaining in life. We're certainly experiencing leaks with them. No, we're not in danger of the roofs collapsing, but we will just continue to have to dig into operational costs to continue to repair the roofs whenever there's a leak. So it's something that we certainly need to get ahead of to maintain the integrity of the inside of the buildings. Blanchard is right now about 30 years old, so it's kind of served half of its life so far, and it would be moving on to its second life. Robinson is 60 years old, and essentially if you put on a roof, then we'd be asking for it to kind of continue on for another 30 years. So I think that's something that we definitely want to be mindful of when making this decision. The whole reason why this was kind of brought forth is that ultimately a project such as this would obviously require funding. And right now, last year, there was only one option in which we talked about bringing it forward to the Massachusetts School Building Authority underneath an accelerated roof repair project. In total, it would probably take about a little under a year to do the application, a couple of months to do the design work, and then probably another year to build. So we're kind of talking about anywhere from 2 to 2.5 years to finalize a project. So it's something that we really need to start to address, I guess. Another option that we have is that we are exploring an energy performance contract across the town of Westford to obviously include all of the school systems. Roofs do have an energy benefit to them, in which this project would certainly qualify for it to be passed under one of those projects as well. So we don't apply for an MSBA project. It's not like we're out of options. There certainly will be other funding available that we could go after to include it into larger projects. And then finally, there is one more slide that I'd like to go through on slide 13. Slide 13 would be a much larger project. I know all of you go and walk each of the buildings each year, and I'm so grateful that you do. And it's an ability to actually see with your own eyes what the buildings are like. But I talked to Chris Ardella, the principal over there, and he certainly has his concerns, and rightfully so. You know, the building is 60 years old. It is a tough climate and environment to work with. It's certainly nothing compared to Crisafulli or Miller or any of our other schools. It's just starting to get outdated, and there's some concerns, whether it be the elevators or ADA accessibility. The new addition, as I mentioned before, has some heating concerns and dehumidification concerns. And then obviously there's just the generals that when this building was built 60 years ago, it wasn't designed as a 2020 building. It was designed, you know, as that 1980s building, or whatever that math turns out there, 1960s, right? So, so this whole objective would be to the fact that, listen, we're kind of at the point where a lot of our systems are getting very old. The layout's not really conducive to a 2020 type educational style and environment anymore. And it would be to entertain possibly going forth with an MSBA project to, you know, really renovate or repair or whatever you have to go through the gauntlet to determine what the best thing is to do here. With a side note to also consider as part of this project, potentially doing something with the Robinson as well, if that's what the school committee and the town of Westford ultimately decides to start pushing for. But much like the roof projects, the slide above, this is just to you know, start to bring attention to the environment of the building, specifically the roofs before, and then this one more so the building itself. So this was in total the slides and the presentation that was delivered again to that capital committee that met last Friday. I know that they're meeting with all of the other committees or all the other department heads in town. I think that there's just under $2 million in total worth of free cash that they have to, if I'm correct with that number. I know that they're still working on it too, right? Half of it's still undetermined. But I do know that what I've been told is that it's definitely a tight year and that there's certainly a lot of competition going on. And I myself presented some other public buildings projects too. So I think that, they've heard our side of it, and, happy to discuss anything and to answer any questions you all may have.
Ingrid?
I just wanted to add Mike Wells from the Director of Technology also presented the technology needs for the schools. And the request that he put out was just over $300,000, $306,000, mostly for equipment. And Carrie, chime in. I think you know this probably better than I. Equipment for the classrooms. We did purchase 800 Chromebooks with CARES funds that can be allocated next year as well. But Carrie, if you have additional.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there were a lot of deferred costs that now has sort of come to a head with teacher device replacements. But yes, we are, as Ingrid said, leveraging the 800 new devices, and those will go out to the 9th graders and the 6th graders in the hopes to have one-to-one at the middle school. It is a less expensive model. We were talking a lot about previously in earlier years about whether or not, we have concerns with middle school students taking devices home. And like so many other things, this pandemic has really expedited some of that thinking. And so we're happy to say it's been tested and it's going actually quite well. So if that's the case, then we would just be simply redeploying Chromebooks over time from end of year 8th graders and end of year seniors to the lower levels, and then 6 through 12 would be one-to-world. So that's kind of our current thinking.
Okay, thank you. Well, Bill, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to Paul for a very thorough job on the development of the capital plan. The only other thing is, I do want the parents to know that the day school does meet all of the life safety codes. This is not a matter of school safety. It's an old building. It is a building that by modern day school design standards is quite antiquated in terms of space and aesthetics, and does need some sprucing up. But I don't want anyone to leave tonight's meeting thinking that it might be unsafe. That is not the case. But Paul, thank you for an excellent job.
Thank you very much. And yes, completely agree. The building is very safe.
And just one more thing, if I may. As Paul alluded, we anticipate having very limited free cash this year. So we most likely will be asked to pair this list. And so this is the first pass, and most likely, whereas, everything is absolutely needed. You saw some of the pictures. Paul did a great job. I think the visuals speak more than any text. But we have to be, obviously realistic this year in the financial situation. So this may change as we move through the budget process.
I was just going to say, if that ends up being the case, at the very least, I felt like this was a really nice, like you said, Ingrid, a really nice way of visualizing what we're looking to do. And this, I would expect this is sort of a living presentation, right? Like however many we get to knock off the top of the list this year, we do. The next year we'll slide the others up, and I'm sure add a few more. So I appreciate the way you presented it, and we'll keep getting on as many of them as we can as we go.
Yes, thank you, Paul, for that presentation. It's important for us to address all these short-term urgent needs, and also to do that long-term planning. I think it struck me when I believe someone said during the finance subcommittee that what we think of as our quote new school buildings aren't really new anymore. So certainly our older buildings do need some attention and some planning, and we have to plan for the long term for those buildings. So
by the time you take that in, I'll be in there.
I do appreciate that both short-term vision and long-term.
Chris, you're mute.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay. You're good. So thank you for both that short and long-term perspective, because we need both. We need to be keeping an eye on both those. Thank you to Paul and for everyone for having both of those in mind at the same time. Any questions, comments? Valerie?
Sorry, just a newbie question. Can someone like give me the high level overview of this? Does it come back to us at all, or is it like in the capital hands from now on, or?
It will come back to you for approval, but it will take a little bit of time. As Ingrid said, we don't quite know where everything will fit from a financial perspective. So there'll be probably some reprioritizing, but you will ultimately approve a capital list.
Okay.
And finance will continue to work on it in our committee as well as new information becomes available. And I see Ingrid's hand.
No, I just Valerie, just, kind of for that overview perspective. So traditionally, Westford pays for capital out of the free cash, which is the money kind of left over. Targeted is, at least $1.5 million every year. We also have a capital stabilization fund that, at times when there's great need, we can dip into. For example, when 63 Main, that purchase was had to happen fairly quickly, was outside of a cycle. So the money to purchase that building was taken from the capital stabilization fund, and then at town meetings it gets replenished. But particularly this year, because with a late town meeting and not knowing the greater financial picture, it's really going to be very fluid, and we'll probably be coming multiple times with this back to you. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to weigh in and make sure all your questions are answered.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple specific questions I can take offline, but as far as the Robinson playground, what are the existing one is K-2, right? So it's not like kindergarten doesn't have one right now.
Correct.
So
That's correct. The only one that doesn't have their own dedicated space, which I believe is just kind of open play space, is what they're doing right now with the use of the parking lot and drawing items out there. That seems to be kind of what they're doing right now. The ideal scenario would be to get them some play structures that can be used to kind of stimulate their brain activities and stuff.
Right, specifically the preschool.
Yeah. And what did they use at Millennium? Have we priced out moving equipment from there?
Yeah, so we have, what will definitely be included in this project overall is for the designer and overall construction to look at the possibilities to try to remove as much play equipment as possible in the hopes of saving us money. Anything's always possible. It always just costs money, and then you kind of do a cost comparison about how much it is it worth it. One of the biggest issues that is faced with the playground industry is that, in my opinion, I think it's one of the fastest moving codes right now that exist. So when you put stuff in one year, it's almost borderline non-compliant the next year. So that stuff's been there for a couple years now. So some of it may very well be capable of being moved, in which we'll certainly do that. But I want to definitely sign up for a full project in the hopes of giving back more money because we're able to salvage stuff. So I just want to make sure that what I'm asking for, that my promise is ultimately delivered and that I don't come up short.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious about it because and I know that this is a different different funding mechanism than our school operating budget, but when last year during the budget process, when the preschool move was brought up, this really wasn't part of the conversation, and that was kind of touted as cost neutral-ish. So this seems extra.
Yeah, at least from my perspective, it's certainly one that's tough to predict. You know, the other two schools were able to kind of accommodate it, and with their existing play structures there, they were able to make it work. You know, I think that it's something that was just ultimately missed. You know, playground is such an easy thing, go outside and everything's taken care of. So it's tough to always think that one through at least.
Thank you for the attention to all those details. We know playground safety is so important and so complicated. So thank you for the attention to those details. Any other questions from the committee at this point? As we said, it will be an ongoing conversation. Okay, with that, Paul, thank you again for joining us. Appreciate all of the information. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again.
Great. Thank you all very much. Have a nice night.
And thank you to you and really the whole custodial staff for everything everyone is doing to keep everyone safe and keep the buildings clean. It's a huge undertaking and means so much. So thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
And I believe we're on to warrants. So Alicia, you're up.
Okay, motion to approve payroll warrant 2122 SP dated November 25th, 2020 in the amount of $2,047,922.51.
Second.
Thank you, Avery. And vote is also to you, Avery.
Yes.
Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
And aye. So that is unanimous. Next one.
Motion to approve expense warrant 2122 SE dated November 25th, 2020 in the amount of $595,384.16.
Second.
And vote to you, Avery.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
And aye. So that is also unanimous. And minutes.
Motion to approve school committee meeting minutes regular session dated November 9th, 2020.
And a second. Thank you. And Avery?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
Aye. That would be unanimous. And this evening, we do have a brief.
Gloria, their executive session minutes.
Did they make the agenda? I think that might. Are they on the current agenda? My apologies. One more motion.
Okay. So motion to approve school committee executive session minutes not for public release dated October 26, 2020 and November 9, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you for that catch, everyone. And vote to Avery.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
And aye. So that is unanimous. And now the final motion of the evening. Alicia.
Motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to Unit A collective bargaining in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position. The committee will not return to a public session.
And thank you. Avery?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
And aye. That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone who might still be with us. We appreciate you joining us here tonight, and we will not return to public session. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Chris, have you sent out